Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AI Asset IQ, where we talk to leaders, entrepreneurs, founders of today's businesses that are shaping tomorrow's world. Today, we have someone very special on, Chante Dawson, who's been a founder now of C Squared Accounting, and it's a boutique firm that supports other entrepreneurs in understanding their numbers and in running their businesses with confidence. She earned her accounting degree from Florida State University and then followed that up with a master's in accounting from North Florida. After that, she started a career in Deloitte, where she worked a variety of different roles and got her CPA license. She later moved into consulting and accounting and advisory support, helping businesses strengthen their financial institution. With decades of experience, she enjoys working with small business owners, giving them clarity and helping them with their finances. Her interests entrepreneurship, and a desire to create a supportive workspace. She started her own firm. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. She has loves spending time with her Great Dane Brutus. She loves traveling, eating, and getting lost in the good books. Without any further ado, Chante, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you on.
Thanks, Keith. I'm excited to be here. Glad to have this opportunity to talk to you about AI and what's going on in the accounting space.
All right. Well, I thought before we kind of dig into your background and what you've been doing, let's maybe quickly talk about Brutus a little bit. So just to lighten things up, how long have you had Brutus for?
So he is a little over 4 now, and I got him when he was 2 months. So I always wanted a Great Dane. I grew up with dogs, and my mom just was like no to the Great Dane. She would not allow it. And so it was always like, I guess, a lifelong goal to eventually be able to own one as an adult. A little after COVID, I started working from home before I started my own business. And it just seemed like a perfect time to go ahead and get the dog. And so I got him when he was 2 months old. He was only about 20 pounds. He's over 150 now. So a lot of growth over these last few years.
Oh my goodness. They're just such gentle giants, like they say, right? They're just adorable. I've never had a dog or a pet myself, but my kids keep bugging me to have one. And we've certainly interacted with a lot of Great Danes, and they're just fantastic animals. They're just so loving. 150 pounds. Wow. That's incredible. Next
Yeah.
time we've got to have him
Yeah.
on the
He's
show.
very, very big
Definitely
boy.
got to have him on.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
sure he'd love that. And
Um,
he loves kids too,
I'm
by
sure
the way. So,
he has kids
if your
too. There
kids
you
want to
go.
play with the Great Dane one day, like he loves kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's good to know. All right. Well, let's get back to you, the star of the show for today. I gave a brief introduction there, but maybe you can take us back a little bit and, tell us a bit more about yourself, your background, and kind of what your role is at the moment.
Sure. I, like you said, graduated from Florida State University. I guess backing up even further, I am originally from Florida, although I live in Texas now. And I went to college not knowing what I wanted to do. Did an internship after my freshman year. And this was back in 2008 when the economy in the US was absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And I worked with a manager who said, hey, like, you should check out accounting because when you graduate, you'll more than likely be able to find a position. And so I was like, okay, like, I'll consider it. So I took a few courses, talked to a couple upperclassmen that I knew that were in accounting, and it just seemed like a really good fit. So I started down that path, ended up working in public accounting for Deloitte, which is kind of the standard, I would say. Well, it's becoming less of the standard now. But back when I was going through school and everything, it was kind of the standard to do the public accounting to kind of get your feet wet a bit. So I did that. I was there for almost 6 years, which is kind of abnormal. Most people do about 3 years or so. And then the kind of decide to leave and go into another space. But I actually really enjoyed my time with Deloitte and being an auditor and getting to see how a variety of companies handle things. I think it's really set me up well for the role that I'm in now with my own company, being able to help out those in different industries and that I've seen how a variety of companies work. I kind of know some solutions that I can provide pretty easily because I've seen it implemented on, higher scales. And I kind of also have a good idea of what doesn't work because there are a lot of the Fortune 500 companies out there that are doing things that aren't so great in the finance space. So I've been able to learn both the good and the bad. So yeah, so had a great experience there. Decided to leave just because I knew I didn't want to be like an audit partner. And at some point you kind of get to that point where like it's not as beneficial to continue to work for a company like Deloitte if you don't want to go up and reach that kind of max level. So I decided to go into the consulting space. So I did that for about 5 years. And it was really a great experience as well because I worked with a variety of clients and in a variety of roles. And so it really helped me kind of shore up my experience, being able to do things outside of the audit world and actually really get my hands dirty instead of being kind of like an outside looker. I was in the thick of things, making journal entries and creating presentations for executives on what we're seeing in the financial space and just all the fun stuff that I'm able to leverage and kind of create for my clients now.
Fantastic. That is such a diverse background. It's great to see. I mean, I think clearly your experience with Deloitte, there must have been some long hours there, I'm sure. That's what I've heard. But it
Yeah,
does set you up. It
I
does
would
set you up.
say it, it does. It sets you up very well. I was fortunate. I didn't have too many long hours like some people. I did have
Right.
one day where like we worked on a special project for a client and we were there until like 4 a.m. and then we're back like 9 a.m. the next day. Which, like, I think about that now and I'm like, that is so insane that I did that
Yes.
for, a job. But yeah, that's kind of my one like horror story.
Sure.
Otherwise, it wasn't like too terrible.
Okay. I mean, we're probably getting into some of the other questions a little bit, but I'm just curious since we're talking about long work hours and timings, do you find like being in the accounting business that the hours tend to, towards year end and month end and tax year end, do you tend to see with your particular business right now just a big spike in work and activity, or has it been pretty stable for you no matter what you were doing from your auditing days to, your consulting days to kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think now the hours are still there, but I'm able to manage it better. So, like if I need to take off a couple hours in the middle of the day, I'm able to do that and then, work on the back end or, just work longer hours another day. So I think that's really the positive thing about being in the situation I am now where I'm really able to manage my own schedule. But there definitely are spikes at year end and tax season because that's when more people start to pay attention to their finances. And
Yes.
so they come to you and they want more help. Sometimes they are kind of coming to you at the last minute to say, like, hey, like, I know tax season is a month away and I need help now. And it's like, okay, great.
That sounds
Like,
like me.
it would have been nice if you had come to me 2 months ago, but like, let's figure it out. So it does create, those challenges of having to figure out how to do things in an efficient way so that everything is done timely. And I know we'll probably talk a little more about this later, but I think that is one way that AI is really helping the accounting profession
Yeah.
is taking away some of that manual work and allowing it to be done a lot faster. And,
Yeah.
right now I would say AI is getting to a place where it's able to do that not only faster but also accurate. So
Yeah.
we are able to kind of just do quick reviews with the work that AI does and then move things forward a little faster.
Sure. Excellent. Yeah, it's definitely something we can unpick a bit more later on in this chat. Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to the next bit then. And some of the questions I had for you was, now how do you see what you do in your role fit into the bigger picture of financial services? Obviously, the financial services industry is huge, and you could cut it into different businesses that you support or different services that you provide. So I'm just curious, how do you slot your offering into the whole array of services that you could offer in the financial services industry?
Yeah, so I like to say that I am like a full service boutique firm, because I will help with like your basic bookkeeping and accounting and also do tax compliance, which is more like the return preparation piece that everyone's more common with. But then we also do advisory services on both the accounting side, which is probably more of what you heard of as like the fractional CFO. Fractional CFO is what you will hear a lot for like the advisory
Yes.
piece of the accounting. And then we also do tax advisory. So we try to kind of meet a small business's needs from all the nuts and bolts, also to, really be a strategic partner with them, depending on, what stage of their business cycle that they are in. I would say when looking at the larger kind of financial services piece, we are trying to be more of a partner than like a service provider with, a lot of kind of the financial service area where, your person that's working at the bank doing loans is more providing you, a service. Could be one time, it could be something ongoing depending on how many loans and stuff you have, but they aren't really like a partner in your business where it's my goal to kind of be your financial partner, to help you get, different insights and things like that to really manage not only your business, but your overall goal and dreams with your business so that, we can make sure that we are getting you to a place where your business is able to really fund the lifestyle that you want.
I really like that philosophy because it shows that you're vested in, the partnership is, that means you're vested in the business interest. You're vested in the business itself doing well and having good outcomes because you're closely working with them and closely linked. It's very aligned with kind of Dia's and my philosophy as well in what we do. So it's really nice to hear that that's the same model you're following. I think there's a lot of fractional consulting that's out there, but finding someone really reliable and someone that you can trust and someone that you can go to when you need them is I guess the challenge, right? Someone that you can rely on most of the time. So fantastic that you're in that space trying to fill that gap. Really good to know.
Yes.
So take us through now, maybe since you do all these different things, it's obviously a very colorful day that you have, depending on what you have to do. So what does a typical day look like? I'm sure it looks different from day to day, but maybe just give us what an average day for Chante looks like.
Yeah, it definitely is different from day to day. I would say kind of the main things that continue throughout every day is like having calls with clients, whether that be like new prospective clients or clients that I'm currently working with. I do tend to spend time in calls, trying to make sure that like I understand their needs clearly. I think that's one area where some people kind of miss the boat is that they look at things just from the data perspective where they are just collecting information and kind of putting it into their system and then spitting it back out to the client, which there is like a time to do that. But I like to have some initial conversations so that I really kind of understand needs and goals and figure out how we can work best together. And then, obviously there's some of work, the actual work that has to be done, the reviewing financial statements and looking at tax plans and creating different schedules and all of that stuff.
Sure.
And then, meetings and stuff with my internal team. I have just like a really small team right now, but we do have, check-ins and different things like that to make sure everyone's on track. And then doing lead generation efforts, that's something that I spend more time doing. I would like to, honestly. And I would say that's an area of the business that I'm still figuring out. But yeah,
Sure.
that is something else that is kind of a typical part of my day.
That's good to know. We can have a separate conversation about the lead generation piece and some thoughts and ideas that we might have. That's interesting to know.
Okay.
Do you like the flexibility of work? Like, because obviously you've come from Deloitte. I know COVID changed a lot, like, moving to the remote workplace. But then, moving from like a very active Deloitte and consulting environment to now, I'm imagining you're doing most of your work remotely. Is that fair to say? You do most of your work
Yes.
from your
I am
home? Yeah.
100%
How,
remote.
yes. And do you like that, or do you sometimes
So
find that challenging? Do
I,
you?
I
Yeah.
do. It, it started with COVID where I was given the opportunity to be mostly remote with the company that I was working with. And I kind of just continued that for the most part since COVID. I have gone back to the office a couple times for different clients before I ventured out on my own. But for the most part, it's been remote. And I do like it because of the flexibility, like I said earlier, but also there's less distractions working from home. I mean, although there are definitely distractions when you work from home, but, I find not having to hear like different people's calls that they're making is nice. Not getting stopped like in the hallway or, in the lunchroom to have, like a 15-minute conversation. Like, and I mean, those things are nice, but it's like things that eat away at your day that you don't necessarily think about until those things are removed. So I do think that like working from home has helped me be a little more productive in addition to the flexibility that I'm able to have.
That's nice to know. I think I sort of agree with you there. Although I think I miss the outdoors. I think it's just been I think I grew up in the industry working a lot outside, and I think I kind of miss that sometimes. So for me, it's a bit of a 50. I like the hybrid work environment where you can kind of get to work sometimes and interact. But you're right, like the benefits of not, being able to just focus some days, sit and just get the work done. I think that's been one of the blessings come out of COVID, one of the very few blessings come out of COVID. All
Yeah,
right,
I
that's
agree.
great. Yeah, we've. I think what I'd like to talk about next is basically just what you're seeing in terms of trends, right? Just industry trends. What are the shifts you're seeing? We're clearly in a time of transition with technology and everything that's happening around us in terms of the influx of data and the movement of people globally as well. I'm just curious what you're seeing as industry trends that are immediately impacting you as a business owner, but also the wider financial services industry.
Yep. So I think kind of the big trend that is happening in the wider industry, which also kind of trickled down to me and my business, is that it's moving us from being technicians and really taking away a lot of the manual work that we were doing, especially in the accounting and tax environment, and moving us more into that being someone who like has to provide like strategy and insights and, more into that kind of partner space. And I think those people who are afraid of technology and who are kind of in that, I want to wait and see how it goes, especially, with AI. There are concerns about like, keeping client data private and all of that kind of thing, which you definitely have to be, aware of because we do deal with like highly sensitive information, but you've also got to figure out a way to leverage technology, especially AI, because if you don't, I feel like the industry will definitely leave you behind because clients are looking for, faster information. They're looking for, more detailed and developed insights. So you really have to be able to leverage the technology to get that information to them quicker and really provide something of value. It's no longer where you can just kind of take their data, clean it up, and provide them a basic financial statement package, and then they're happy with it. They want that plus like your analysis of like what red flags you're seeing and, what changes they can make to save here and, what's service line do I think they should, invest in to grow? And so it's definitely, I think, kind of making the profession more premium, I guess, instead of, just being the typical like bean counter space. It's forcing us to elevate, which I think is nice. And I think there have always been like some aspects of that, analysis and stuff that, the profession was providing. It's just something that everyone is going to have to do across the board, and people are going to be expecting it at a higher level because there's no longer that excuse of, well, it took me, 20 hours just to get your
Yes,
information in a pretty format.
that's right.
With the technology we have now, like something that used to take, 20 hours 5 years ago can now take 1 hour. So
It's so refreshing to hear you talk so positively about the use of technology and AI to augment your work. It is because I don't like you rightly pointed out. There's people that haven't really uh, taken it up to the full potential that it can, and I think that's really basically the differentiator right now between businesses that are able to provide that extra to their clients versus people that are kind of skeptical and lagging behind. So it's very refreshing to hear what you're doing, and I would love to actually double click and dive a bit deeper to see how you are actually using some of those technologies stacks that are available within your particular domain. I'm curious to dig into the tools a little bit more if you've got a couple of minutes just to spare talking about that. And then maybe we can talk about any gaps and any opportunities you see within that space as well. So let's first talk about, what are you using right now? Like, how are you augmenting technology with what you are doing in your business?
yeah, so I think kind of the most basic thing that I'm doing that is helping is just with like the client delivery, that whole management of my client interface is pretty much set up in the high level system. So, pretty much once I get someone's contact information, high level is doing most of the work in connecting with them, sending emails and text reminders and all of that
Yeah.
thing, whether it be for like, signing engagement letters and requesting, documentation that's needed. All of that is being managed. And so there isn't that requirement for back and forth emails and all of that. I'm able to get that information that I need. Clients can manage the upload of it securely and everything to portals, and it just is pretty seamless. So that is one way. I also am looking, I haven't started actually using one yet, but I'm looking into like the document reading tools. There are a lot of those out there, where you kind of can set them up. They can be personalized to kind of how you work. And essentially, the tool reads the documentation for you, spits you out like an Excel that says, hey, this is, all of the information that you told me you needed from this document. So instead of having to scan, pages and pages of information to populate a tax return, I can just get one summary file for every client that has everything I need and then populate the return from there, after I've done a review. So that's something that, saves hours upon hours. And then I use QuickBooks for keeping up with clients' accounting and bookkeeping. And they just recently kind of overhauled the software and have put in a lot of integrations. So information comes in automatically. The tool is now kind of enhanced with AI learning features so that like once you categorize something a few times, they start to recognize that particular transaction and will categorize it automatically for you. And so you just do a quick review to make sure that what it's doing is correct. You approve it and you keep going. Like you don't have to do the manual review and the manual inputting of information. So that's another area where time is being saved. They also have kind of an AI center within QuickBooks that I want to say they released like 2 months ago or so, where they also are automatically kind of pointing out like little analytical things like red flags. So, like, you have a negative cash balance on a client account, it kind of pops up something like that for you to take a look at and see like if there's an issue with, something that has been processed within the system, or if for whatever reason the client maybe just had a bad month or something. Oh, excuse me. It could be the client overpaid an invoice or something and they didn't realize it. And so now their cash balance is negative. And so it's things like that you can more quickly identify and get that information over to clients to support them. But there's just so many ways to use the different tools. I am playing around with how to use them in my lead generation efforts. I know we kind of briefly mentioned lead generation. So that's another area where, I'm leveraging AI to help, find people that are in my ideal client profile. So I am trying to use AI and different technology tools everywhere I can.
That is so nice to hear, right? So you've got a CRM tool, which is fantastic. You got QuickBooks that you're augmenting AI with, which is again brilliant. You're looking at ways to use AI for lead gen, and you're looking at ways for AI to read documents and give you outputs, which is fantastic. You're kind of looking at your whole gamut of opportunities that you have within your space to reduce the amount of time you spend doing work and the ability to give you insights for your clients. So that's great. It's really great to hear. I'm curious though, like a few things that are working well for you right now. Do you have some goals that you've set? Of course, we're reaching the end of this year. You have set up for yourself for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, a year. Is that how you set yourself up for things that you want to achieve for your business and for yourself personally?
Yeah, so I do like kind of each year kind of try and come up with at least like 3 to 5 things that I want to focus on and, make sure that I'm trending in the right direction. I try and make sure it's a mix of things for my business personally and also things that will lead to client success as well. So like I, have a goal to, increase client profitability and cash flow by 10%, like across the board for all my clients within like a year of me working with them. So that's something that I'm tracking on a kind of more personal like goal for my business. I guess I have two main things that I'm looking at right now, and one is just getting more consistent lead generation. And then the second is I just started this community for, I guess, done with you kind of financial services for those people who are in a place where they can't quite afford like hundreds of dollars to go out monthly. So this is a community where we will meet throughout the month and the group doing Q&A, doing different workshops, co-working sessions, that type of stuff. And you'll have templates and other things like that that you'll get access to manage your bookkeeping and taxes a little bit better on your own. It's kind of, I guess, like the first step to kind of getting things in order so that then when you do grow, you're in a better place to be able to work with someone like me. So I'm
That's
focused
it.
on
Sounds like
the
a
growth of
fantastic
that
initiative.
membership.
Sounds like a great It's a great initiative. I think we should find a way to link some of that information in the show notes. So maybe you can send me some links for that later on. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah, and I just launched it like a couple months ago because I kept running into people who just in conversation would be say, "Oh, I would love to, work with you or work with someone like you, but I just can't afford that right now." And I totally
Yeah.
get it. Like if your business is making, 150K, like you can't really spend $400 or $500 plus a month on, bookkeeping. Like that needs to be spent elsewhere in your business. I also am a big proponent of people like paying themselves. So that's something else that, I don't want someone to spend the money on, bookkeeping and accounting if they don't have to, instead of like, taking some kind of personal draw to make sure that they are able to pay themselves. So I decided to create this community. Here's Brutus. I decided to
You
create
decided to
this
join us
community.
anyway.
So, so that, people really have something that helps them until they get to that next level.
Yeah, really, really good to know and see that, that you've got this well thought about in terms of where you want to go and you want to get, what you want to get to. It's been a very refreshing conversation, to be honest, because I wasn't sure what to expect in our previous conversations. Obviously, I knew you came across as just this really lovely, bright person to talk to, but to see how you've embraced technology and how you've taken on the whole AI challenge is interesting. I can see there's still opportunities, and you want to try and get to somewhere by the end of next year. Obviously, hopefully, we're able to support you in that journey as well. Do you have any questions for me, Chante?
So I do have a couple questions. One, I wanted to know kind of what are some of the trends that you're seeing within the small business space, just with the conversations that you have with others on the podcast and maybe what you're seeing in your clients?
Yeah, great question. And you actually touched on quite a few of those trends, to be honest. To be able to explain the trends, I probably need to step back a bit and just maybe segment what AI actually offers, because I think there's a lot of confusion around using the term AI in general. And so, AI really, the way I bucket it is into like three different groups right now. There's this whole automated space with AI being able to do a lot of automations and manual tasks automatically. And then that leads into this predictive analytics space where it can use all that data to be able to provide insights into stuff. So I can see there's a trend and a group of people that are using that capability because, people just, they figure that a lot of the grunt work can be taken out, and so let's get AI to do all that for them. So there's definitely that one pillar of work that's been taken up quite heavily. The other pieces that the AI space offers is the other two pillars, obviously. The other two pillars being the generative AI space and the agentic AI space. And it's slightly different from AI agents, but clearly in the content creation space, there's a lot of generative AI that's being used, to create social media content, ads and stuff like that, that people are using now very heavily. So there's a big uptake of that. There's also work happening in the agentic AI space, or I guess specifically with AI agents, where people are using agents a lot these days from a customer service standpoint and that customer interaction standpoint, so that they kind of keeping themselves out of some involvement that can happen on an automated basis. And some of these agents these days can do some amazing stuff. I was just, on a presentation recently where this agent was able to manage a customer's freight forwarding completely autonomously, where, it took in a request from a customer, called up a freight forwarder, sorted it out, went back to the customer, and was able to manage the customer ask all in one call pretty seamlessly. And with a Texan drawl as well, you can kind of customize these agents to meet different accents. So I guess the trend I'm seeing is in these three different brackets. You see the automation space, you see the generative space, and then you see the agent space. In saying that, though, I still think the uptake of AI in the small to medium business community is not as heavy. So I was, really pleasantly surprised to know some of the tools you're using and how you're so forward thinking about some of these things. So it's been quite enlightening for me to have that conversation with you.
Yeah. I
Is
think
there, did you
honestly
have,
some of that goes back to my time with Deloitte, where like they were always kind of pushing some initiative to kind of try and streamline something or do something better or to embrace new technology. So I think having started my career at such a large company, especially in a time where, technology in the financial services space was really starting to ramp up, kind of gives me the confidence to explore those things more than it does, some of the people who've been in this space a little longer. And I do also think that like I'm in that sweet spot where like I've got a healthy amount of skepticism just because technology hasn't always been a super dominant part of my life,
Absolutely right.
but I, know what it can do and know that you should embrace it. And so it definitely kind of helps me make sure that I am making some moves in the right direction, I think. But it's also, I'm in that place where I'm not going too fast and, kind of making mistakes and missteps, especially considering all of the privacy concerns and confidentiality requirements that are necessary in my business. So, that's
Yeah.
great to kind of hear all of the things that you are seeing and definitely kind of confirm what I am doing as being in the right path. And I did have one
No,
other
I think you're,
question,
yeah,
me
go ahead.
being
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, me being a numbers person, I am curious on like what metrics you are seeing used or you would suggest someone use when they are trying to see the value and the payoff that they're getting for using different AI tools, whether it be, the agents or, you know, the generative, like what are some of the things that they should be tracking to make sure that like they're getting the best use?
That's another fantastic question. And the way I tend to look at it is just again, drawing back to some of my days also in consulting and working with big companies in the past, is really structuring my thoughts around kind of what are the gaps that are there in the business? What are the changes that I want to bring about to those gaps? And really, I look at it in terms of the money that I have and how I want to spend it. And so I look at capital efficiency, and then I look at my operational efficiency. And then I look at, well, what are those two efficiency pillars feeding? And they predominantly, I think, for small, medium businesses are feeding two things. On the front end, they're feeding lead generation and client retention and quality clients. So that's a big part of where the money is going in from an AI standpoint. And I think not just lead generation, but then also finding the right, scraping the right quality clients, getting the right quality clients, and then managing that whole customer relationship piece. So that's definitely one aspect of AI that's getting used heavily. And so, the metrics that you want to track there is how much has my lead generation gone up and how much of that lead generation have I actually converted to quality leads, and how much of those quality leads have actually converted over to clients. And it's varying from business to business. So it's very hard to say that there's a benchmark that's working. I think it really comes down to the niche that you're in. But my general rule of thumb is that if you've doubled something within the first year of you trying this, because you want to give it some time as well. I think there's a little bit of hesitancy for people to try and implement things and see immediate answers. But what I am seeing in general is with some of these tools, it's taken about 3 to 6 months. So you want to give it some time. If you are putting in the capital behind it, you want to give it some time to be able to see that change. I think in lead generation, we've seen somewhere between like 5-10% increase in just client retention rate. So if you can, basically improve your client numbers by about 10%, that's a great start. And then you can just scale from there on. So that's one aspect that I think is useful. The other aspect is in the whole, the revenue generation and cash flow, right? So it's how, and what are some of the things that are useful there? Well, in that, it's all about efficiency and how I can do more with my time, how I can reduce my labor rates. So it's the metrics that you're tracking there are again completely different, but it's the cost of work that's put into a client. It's the cost of delivering a certain project. How am I dropping my cost of goods sold? And so the metrics are a little bit different when I'm tracking the whole revenue generation piece. But in general, I would say because of the early AI, uptake of AI, the benchmarking data can be quite confusing. Because people are actually using AI to get answers to some of these things, and it's not always accurate. Some of the data that you actually get back from AI tools can be a bit deceptive. So I think that the best way for people to benchmark and look at metrics is really to just first give themselves some time with the investment, make sure that the tools that they are using or the AI softwares that they're experimenting with, they give it some time, and then they graduate their cost based on the improvements they're seeing. So it's not like a one size fits all for every business. And it's something that me and my wife have been doing, where we've kind of been like doing audits for companies to just see what their current gaps are, and then basically giving them a roadmap of things. Because like you said, and like you rightly pointed out, you don't want to be jumping all in on some of these things. You want to scale up in the right way to deliver value, right? So that you can see how much value it's delivering at the right time. And so the metrics will vary, but at a high level, I would say that the two things I would look at is, how am I converting to quality leads, and then how am I reducing my costs through efficiency and automation and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. I really like how you pointed out that there's, no one size fits all, and that people really need to kind of take time to figure out what makes sense for them. I think
Yes,
that it's something that is hard to explain to a lot of people. They want, like,
it is.
kind of the quick answer, and they want to be able to just use what's out there, what's already working, and not necessarily spend the time to look at what works for their business. So I like that you mentioned that, and that is something, like, even with, AI, that we still need to kind of make sure that we're tailoring things.
Yeah. Wow, it's been a fantastic conversation. I clearly didn't expect to talk so much about AI, but your eloquency and versatility on the subject is quite commendable. And I had a great time chatting with you, Shante. So hopefully we can do this again sometime. If there's no other questions you had, maybe
Yes.
we'll call this to a close.
Yep. No other questions for me. Thank you for answering those. And I had a great time chatting with you as well. I'm really glad that we were able to connect. I'm definitely interested in technology and AI and where it can take us. And I think it is something that, really is a game changer for the industry I'm in, as long as it's leveraged correctly. So I definitely will be exploring other things, and definitely will probably reach out for your insights, since AI is really your wheelhouse.
That's good. Well, thanks everyone. I'm gonna chat to you all next time. See you. Bye.